First, though, let's turn our attention to this extraordinary document which was released today. It is an amicus curiae brief, a friend of the court brief that was filed with the US Supreme Court. It involves all the living former Fed chairs, ex-Treasury secretaries, all urging the Supreme Court not to allow Donald Trump to fire Lisa Cook as Fed governor. The amicus brief was filed by, you ready for this? Alan Greenspan, Ben Bernanke, Hank Paulson, and Janet Yellen, all Fed governors and Treasury secretaries. They argue that firing Cook would harm both the bank's credibility and thus US economic stability. The brief says the Fed's ability to fight inflation is directly related not only to its actual insulation from short-term political pressures, but also to the public perception of its independence. Just looking at it, it says, to allow the firing of Cook would expose the Fed to political interference and erode public confidence and efficacy of monetary policy. The amicus curiae includes other former economic officials like Jared Bernstein, who chaired the White House Council of Economic Advisors. He is there and joins me now. Sir, did you have to be convinced hard to sign this?
I did not. The message in that brief is not only important, but it's extremely urgent. These are fast-moving issues, and the independence of our central bank could be quickly compromised if the Supreme Court goes the wrong way on this.
Why do you feel the need to make such a document as this? Because at the end of the day, you know, one imagines Lisa Cook's lawyers will make all the same arguments. I mean, essentially, you're all arguing the same thing, that there is a part of the law, the Fed Act, that says he can only fire for cause, and this is not for cause.
Well, I think there's a bit of a distinction. Her lawyers are reasonably arguing about precedents, about whether the president had really the authority to do what he did under the for cause clause, as you've just mentioned. What we're doing here is very much in the lane of monetary economics. And it is, I don't want to say it's arcane, but it's not the kind of thing that everybody, even wise justices of the Supreme Court, walks around knowing about. For example, it is not widely known that when in countries like Turkey and our own history, the independence of the central bank was compromised, was undermined by political leaders, inflation shot up. And some of the very critical factors that the Fed has in play, the inflation anchor, the ability for a credible Federal Reserve to convince markets that it means what it says, all of that gets undermined when you have this kind of political interference. And so I think the history and the impact of that on markets probably isn't as well known as it should be, even by the justices.
The justices have already hinted they see the Fed as different, don't they? Trump and Wilcox and a couple of other cases where, but particularly that one, where they've started a carve out for the Fed that I'm guessing this case or this amicus brief would also hope to build on, which is very different from, for example, the decision only last week where the justices allowed the firing of the only Democrat on the FTC.
Yeah, this is truly important. And just to make sure your viewers understand what's going on here, the court has given the president quite a bit of authority to summarily remove people in charge of various agencies, including independent agencies. And there's precedent that kind of goes the other way, but they've said, well, maybe that precedent isn't quite right. They've singled out the Fed, though, as a different case. One of the things we try to amplify in the brief is that I think it's problematic when the president does this in any independent regulatory agency. So I would be probably with the liberals on the court who voted against those decisions. But those decisions don't reverberate across global markets the same way this one would. again, once the executive starts putting himself in the business of the central bank, history is very clear that markets, that our creditors, people who lend to us, that businesses, price setters, wage setters, they all recognize that the Fed is now infiltrated by political forces, and that has observably negative effects on their ability to control inflation and to set interest rates to hit their goals of maximum employment at stable prices. So this is a very serious problem that the president is fooling around with.
All the names, I'm being diplomatic here, all the names on the list are partisan in some sense, and they're all distinguished. But I think even you'd agree it is especially distinguished when you have Alan Greenspan's name on the list. 5 times chair of the board and appointed by Reagan, kept on by Democrats. It's really quite extraordinary that he's signed on as well.
There's a tremendous amount of experience, myself excluded, on that list with Treasury secretaries and former Fed chairs, and at least one person, Janet Yellen, who's been both chair of the Fed and Secretary of the Treasury. So tremendous amount of weight there. And, don't forget about Ben Bernanke, former Federal Reserve chair, but also truly one of the most knowledgeable persons in the world on the history of central banks in general and the Fed in particular. His recent book on this was really quite magisterial in terms of its historical sweep. For my money, there's few who know what's at stake here more than Bernanke, and he was very engaged with this process.
I'm grateful to you, sir. Thank you very much for joining us. We'll see how the Supremes, as they say, look at it. Thank you.